This video right here shows the horrors of war close up and personal. A lot of people who have questioned about the so-called war in Iraq being good or bad didn't really matter. I told them the true horrors is war only produces victims, not victors. And this should prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. You see, our politicians have lied. They use war as a tool to basically say to the American people, we gotta go in there and do something. And 9 times out of 10, that doing something leads to a disaster. And this should prove it. This so-called war should prove it. Any other time, that mother and father would not have been killed. They might have been known by the guards around there and let them go on through. I understand the soldiers' concerns for having to shoot first, ask questions later. But can you imagine what's going through their heads today? Having to open up that car door. Blew off the top of the people's heads. Lucky the 5 children survived. But will always live not only in terror and fear of Americans, but probably grow up to be the terrorists that we're supposed to be fighting. Just like in Vietnam, the reason Vietnam was such a failure, because there was no objective. There's no true path to victory. I remembered seeing something on one of the Ron Paul victory sites where Giuliani expressed, we need to teach our soldiers nation building. That is nowhere in their requirement. Soldiers are not builders of nations. They are destroyers of them. When you sick the dogs of war in times of war, this is what you get. Victims. You're going to have to kill a lot of innocent people before you kill the truly guilty. And this war is very similar. Oh, well, I can't call it a war. This police action is very similar to Vietnam. In Vietnam, we only knew what half the enemy looked like because they wore uniforms. But then the insurgents did something. They took off their uniforms and just went around in civilian clothes. So we don't know who the enemy is over there. At any given time, we could all be killed like that. That's part of war. And often we have to take innocent lives. And even if the soldiers are let off the hook, they're in the middle of a war zone, they have no choice but to do what they do. That's no excuse and no consolation when said soldiers will probably one day blow their own heads off because they can't get that sight out of their head. That's why there's a lot of suicides, because they see things you're not even supposed to see. But I will probably catch a lot of grief. But the truth of the matter is, this war is the so-called war is a mistake. This police action should not be happening. I agreed with Dr. Ron Paul and many others saying we need to pull out. Get out of this crappy war. Saving us billions. Not only that, I'm tired of seeing people, the only people who are getting rich off of it is the weapons manufacturers. The ones who are shipping over the bombs, the guns, the so-called armor plating. They're making a mint. We're paying for it. Just like I remembered back reading about the Vietnam War, how the men and how the companies were getting medals after medals for giving the life-saving stuff called Agent Orange. Only when they found out the war's ended, contract ended, they filed for bankruptcy, closed the whole thing down, had millions in their back pockets, probably retired a life of luxury. When the Vietnam soldiers were dying from Agent Orange, when they were eat up with cancer, our own politicians, that's including Kerry and McCain, were basically calling them a liar. You don't have to believe me. It took them close to 20 years to get that problem resolved. And a lot of them died trying. When is America finally gonna learn that when you see those little kids screaming, knowing at that moment their parents will never come back, and that little probably 3 or 4 year old, he doesn't know what to say or what to think. His mommy's gone, his daddy's gone. What the hell are these people gonna do to me now? Are they gonna kill us too? That little boy was in terror. That little girl was screaming her head off because she didn't know what to do. Her big sister tried to condole her. Couldn't do it. She was also in shock. So before you ramble on about how we're nation building and teaching the Iraqi people what freedom is all about, look at the innocent lives we're taking. And then you ask the question.